Great Leaps has been accused of forever, like of not dealing with comprehension, just because I didn't choose to deal with it the way everybody else dealt with it. Instead of who and where and when, I was far more interested in why and what if. I think comprehension is linked to thinking and our development of knowledge. So that makes us different. And boy, we're moving out on some really new, interesting ideas that we can play with some today if we get the time. I'm reading a really neat book I could called The Knowledge Gap by Natalie Wexler. The people in Illinois sent it to me for free to read. And I'm getting good stuff out of it, and comprehension especially, because one of her big points is reading comprehension is often not a gap in skills, but a gap in knowledge. And often when we spend so much time on skill development, we're taking our kids out of social studies and science to teach them reading. There's people now saying you shouldn't even have social studies and science the first 2 or 3 years. That's wrong. It's dead wrong. Reading with fluency or prosody is full understanding. You can teach words, and I was reading this in another book, like NIMP, you can teach the rule where Y can change to short I and PHs become Fs. Well, good if you can read it and you have no clue what it means. And so that's a lot of what comprehension is about and what we can all talk about today with our stories and questions and what can we do and how do we build it? And, there's a couple exercises.
You gave me that good example earlier that I just want, that kind of sets that playing field a bit of the world knowledge. I was wondering if you had that to share. I thought it kind of gave that idea really well.
This was the cool thing that even gifted kids could read it. Didn't matter. Okay, Williams swings and hits a slow bouncing ball toward the shortstop. Haley comes in, fields it, throws to first. Too late. Williams is on first with a single. Johnson stayed on third. Next batter up is Whitcomb, the left fielder. Kids who didn't know baseball didn't understand it. Kids who had difficulty reading but could get through it knew it. So a huge piece of what we're neglecting in a lot of our reading is that full understanding, and then how to develop it. When you're pulling kids out for 2 hours of phonics at a time and just intense reading, and that kid happens to come from an area where his word and world knowledge is lacking, we may be doing harm with that choice.
Yeah, so I wanted to work in early too, kind of an example with Lisa about how we kind of approach our depth of knowledge questions. There's been some questions previously kind of about that, and we always say we want to turn that into conversation, and so I guess I'll let Lisa take over here and see if somebody will play like a student with her to do a depth of knowledge demonstration.
Actually, if it's okay with you, Colin, I want to show not only what we do as of right now, but also one of the places we're going.
Sure.
So depth of knowledge is actually the hardest thing to teach people because it is a dance. It's always getting more. It's not settling for a one-word answer, because a one-word answer isn't enough. I want kids writing an essay out loud when I'm doing depth of knowledge with them. Who wants to be my guinea pig?
I'll do it, Lisa.
Okay, Leah. Woo! So the first story in the elementary section is the cat. So they're reading, for those of you who might not have done that section of stories, if they went straight to high school or such, they're doing a story about about a mean old tomcat, an ugly tomcat and such. So my favorite Great Leaps question is right there. Actually, my favorite out of all of them is, what is a cat? So Leah, zap into student mode for a sec for me. Okay, so there's not even a transition. Leah, what's a cat?
A cat is a thing that has 4 legs.
Oh, a cat has 4 legs. My table must be a cat. I get it.
No,
Wait a second, why
that's not
not?
a cat.
Why not? What is a cat?
Well, a cat meows.
Oh, a cat meows. So if my brother is on his hands and knees and goes meow, is he a cat?
No.
Oh, did you guys catch what Leah just did? Did you watch her eyes? She just looked off. She was thinking. That's what we're looking for. Most kids will say a cat is an animal and kind of look at you like, why are you asking me? And then we work on getting more and more out. If a student says a cat is an animal, then I'll go the same direction with, oh, an elephant must be a cat. So I'll work in, and then I go further with Leah. Well, do all cats meow?
I think so.
Oh, what about is a lion a type of feline, a type of big cat?
Yes.
What do they say? Show me. Let me hear it.
Rawr.
Ah, there we go. Exactly.
Multi-sensory.
What other kind of big cats are there? Big felines. What else is in the feline family?
Feline family.
Big cats, felines. Cats are felines.
Tigers. Tigers.
Tigers. Oh, absolutely. So we would keep on playing like that. So I snuck the word feline in there, and I defined it. I learned that from Ken. I defined it as I gave it. And that kid isn't going to forget that word as easy as if you wrote it on a board.
Leah,
So
you mentioned tiger, and now that throws in a story that goes to depth of knowledge. One of the level 4 depth of knowledge questions goes sort of like this. You have a pet tiger and you love him, but the county now prohibits tigers in cages. Well, you're a very rich family, and poor people don't have pet tigers. And yet you got a baby brother that, yeah, sometimes you want him to eat the tiger, want him to be eaten by a tiger, and sometimes not. But what do we do? So, because I love my pet tiger and I don't want to give it away, what do we do? And I wish this was recorded because it was a group that was involved in this depth of knowledge question. And so they're thinking and thinking. That's the major objective of level 4. So I don't care if you can answer it or not. As soon as I get you thinking, I've done what I wanted to do and gotten the behavior I wanted. But they think, and one of the boys has it. Snap, he says, I got it. A moat. We built a moat. And now it's fine. And so, but some of the boys don't know what a moat is. And now we're getting into word knowledge. And we're even getting into St. Augustine. Go to the castle in St. Augustine. That's nearby. It's got a moat. And so now they're learning what a moat is, but I'm riding their horse. They're taking me there. And so we're all talking about moats and castles and all that cool stuff. And then a little boy shakes his head and goes, no, 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 no. And all the other boys look, and he says, tigers can swim. And so, boom, back to the drawing board. But the drawing board is what it's all about. And rapport is written on in here, taking that bad boy and running with it. A lot of teachers don't do that, but you're building word and world knowledge when you run with their high interest. When you've got that rapport and they're talking and working, fill up their language banks, fill up their knowledge banks with everything you can, because that's the best teaching you'll ever get. Sure beats lectures.
Yeah, I want to well, first of all, Leah, thanks for participating in that and being our student. Did anybody have any questions kind of about Lisa's demonstration or, with this, Carolyn?
Yes, I had one question. I'm sitting here. I think it's very powerful the way that you put in a new word and a definition in expressive language. And we have to build that at first. What is a good way to follow up with the family or let the child see what it looks like in writing? Because that a positive form, with the commas on each side of it, I taught a ninth grader who didn't know the answer was between the commas, you know? So
You've almost got to get in person to do that, though. So long distance is difficult. In person, yeah, it's exactly where you go. Same thing with parentheses.
mm-hmm. Just, I didn't know if somebody out there has y'all have way more experience on this instruction, you know? So that's why I'm asking about the virtual side of things.
For the virtual, for my end of it, I have a whiteboard sitting here.
Yeah.
I use it a lot. I'll use it to teach CVCE words. I'll
Mm-hmm.
use it to have a student go through just some words to work on being quick with answers on those high frequency words. And if I need to show something in writing, yeah, I'll write it. Usually when I would use the word feline, though, I wouldn't worry so much about them knowing how to spell it or what that word looks like. I would be more excited to put it in their memory bank.
Exactly. Exposure. You're at the exposure level. Great.
And you have to remember, these kids don't, if they're not reading by third grade,
Mm-hmm.
they're not getting the word and world knowledge in.
Exactly.
So if you combine that with a lack of fluency, yeah, they need those words.
I had a class of 15 to 25 non-reading middle schoolers, and obviously I wasn't going to teach that many kids how to read. That's what Great Leaps got developed for. But I was intensive on the vocabulary development, and I would never use a dummied down story. Edgar Allan Poe is Edgar Allan Poe, and Chekhov is Chekhov, and Mark Twain is Mark Twain, and Mark Twain's funny as hell, but he's not funny as hell if they don't know what the words are. But I can teach them every time I hit a word that they wouldn't know. I'm defining it right there, and I seem to have this stupid knack in me that I can turn everything to the third grade level. So you give me a tough word, I'll give you a third grade definition on it. And we did a lot of that and got them talking, got them arguing, got them thinking. Once you use a word and see, I know what story's coming up and I know what words I want to teach. Once they use the word back at me, they own it, especially if it comes with freedom. I wasn't able to spend that much time with writing because I was handed all the children who couldn't read at all.
Yeah.
So
real quick,
my objective was,
sorry, Mary, it looks like you unmuted, and then we'll follow after with Sammy. Did you have something, Mary?
Yes, I wanted to ask questions. Some of our teachers in New York City are dealing with a lot of multilingual students. And I have, for instance, Anthony DeMonico was telling me about a 5th grade L student who's decoding using Great Leaps. She's able to decode and read a story, but has no prior knowledge to help her to answer the depth of knowledge questions.
Oh, can I jump in with that?
Yeah.
I actually have a good example because I'm working with one of Anthony's students. I adopted Yamira.
She might be the student.
Well, I did monkey after me today. 1, 2, 3, a monkey is after me. The next verse is 4, 5, 6. I am really in a fix. His car is all gassed. He is driving fast. Yamira had no idea what gassed meant. And it also says the monkey is really flying. Well, I asked her today when she got up to that part, do you think that means the monkey is in the air? She said yes, because Spanish, flying doesn't mean fast in Spanish. Flying means actually flapping and flying.
and that is filled with idioms. I had no idea that story is that filled with idioms. As I'm teaching it, I'm going to be translating it for my EL. If my EL student knows really in a fix, that's another one.
Yep.
Oh man, that monkey's in trouble. Boy, here's how I teach it. That monkey's in trouble. Boy, he is in a fix. In trouble. There, double, triple. But with expression, as I say it, with language, and I tie it right back in. That monkey's in a fix. Is he flying? Man, that is driving fast, ain't it? And you know, I don't want to sound like a teacher with them, because a lot of my kids hate teachers, and they failed and failed and failed. So I translate as we go along, and I had no idea my monkey story, which Minnesota hates, has
But
some
yeah,
idioms in it.
that was a really powerful moment. I also let my L's, Yamira is my only L, but I also let her, if she doesn't, I ask her if she knows the words in the phonics probes. Because oftentimes words are nonsense words for some of these kids. And that's okay for some, but when you have a probe that has a lot of them that a student doesn't have a clue on, there's nothing wrong with giving her the opportunity after an exercise to say, hey, what are those words? Don't you understand?
Well, I'm also answering because this is going to be watched on tape for the question. When I hear an EL student reading, and I've noted we've got very low comprehension, but I'm getting not many mistakes, I'm going to listen carefully for intonation. And it was advised that read the entire story with intonation, but if you don't have the time in a 15-minute lesson, I'm going to take a good sentence from that story and read it with intonation. And then if the student is sitting beside me, I can have them read it with me afterwards. With tech, it doesn't work. But if the student is with me, I'm having them read that sentence or two. First, I read it to them with expression. Then we read it together, but I'm cheating, but they don't know it. I'm 1/10 of a second behind them. They will initiate every word. Then if I hear a stumble or a problem area, that's going to let me know, do it again. If there's no problem area, I then can say, all right, now you do it. So it's 1, 2, 3. It's even got a fancy name, neurological impress method. But it works. And grab a little bite. Don't try to grab the whole thing. Grab 2 sentences and get it right. And then listen the next lesson to see if it carries over. If it's carrying over, you're winning. If it's not carrying over, you know you've got to do a little more work. But if they can read it with complete accuracy without intonation, it's not reading. And so that's a huge element in comprehension for us to catch, intonation.
Sammy, do you have something to add there? Sorry, thanks for being
I was going
patient.
backward. No problem. Well, I was going backward to when you were talking about giving the student the word when they don't understand the definition of the word. I feel that unfortunately that's not done enough. And what's happening is we are actually asking students for more skills than than teachers realize. Because we ask them, what is the story about? But we're asking them, okay, understand words that you don't know, figure it out from the sentence, figure out what the sentence means in that paragraph, and figure out what the whole story means. So I feel like when we throw them those definitions of the words, we're actually giving them one of the skills to help them further themselves.
Perfect. And that's how many times when you were little and you're reading, you don't know a word, and the teacher tells you, go look it up.
Exactly. And that's the
And
problem.
I want to give them a middle finger, which will send me somewhere. I had to teach dictionary skills, but I never had my kids use the dictionary and write me the definitions. I had copies of the same dictionary, and we had a race. I'm going to give you 10 words. Write the page numbers down. You've got 5 minutes. Who gets the most? Ready, set, go. Because nobody likes copying words from the dictionary. Nobody. And if they don't know a word in my world, I let the kids. I'm going to tell them what it means. I'm going to drill it into them so they'll know what it means with fun. If I make a joke with it, fine, all the better. Teach those words. That's word knowledge. It isn't world knowledge. And don't want to run out of time and neglect this. World knowledge isn't figuring out what a word is. We're taking our kids out of science and social studies classes to give them more reading, math. They're even saying in the book I'm reading now, 1st and 2nd graders shouldn't have science and social studies so they can concentrate on reading and math. I don't even want to meet these people. I love social studies. I don't like science, but that's beside the point.
All right.
Yeah.
Little bias there.
Yeah, I still believe in genies and witches and spirits and dimensions and all kinds of fun stuff. And they always try to talk me out of it. But teaching, man, let's go to that rapport piece. You and that class, you and that kid, man, you're in heaven, in my opinion. Let's go. Let's teach. Let's talk. I've got every day, and I'm a teacher. I've got a year. Sometimes I've got 2 or 3 because I'm special ed. I'm teaching. The world around me. Oh, I'm filled with stupid stories. Here's my dumbest story ever. I was in teaching at a prison. I was teaching Great Leaps people how to do Great Leaps in a prison. And I was just doing my normal, and I'm teaching prisoners how to teach prisoners how to read. And I'm saying, you know, one of the coolest things about reading when you're really starting to get it is you can escape. Whoops, there was guards in that room. Dumb butt here is telling them you read to escape. I'm trying to say iron walls do not a prison make. And you're in here for life. Well, let's make something of your life. If you can't read, you're going to rot in here. But my opening words are wrong. With reading, you can escape.
I wanted to move over to the kind of, I guess, next steps or the next, evolution of, currently, I think everybody here that's seen the digital program or seen our current iteration of comprehension, may be on the same page with us, that there's room to grow and room to expand. And since we have a room of people that are on board with the program and everything, I was wondering if you'd want to give maybe some insights into kind of this next iteration that we've been working on.
Which one of us?
Dad, primarily.
Oh, all right, I could go in one. I like the idea of multi-sensory a lot. And I also like the idea of all of our senses. Like, imagine if you walked outside your room right now, what would you smell? So, because I learned from Ken Pugh and others, is that when we involve other senses in our reading and in our comprehension, we get these really neat circuits rolling around. And you start building up pleasure centers too, which is really nothing but, in my opinion, fun. So I want little questions that, one, not only make you think, but make you think and move at the same time. So an example, and everybody can try this right now, and we can watch on the screen, see if you're any good at it. Show me with just your hands, without a shoe, show me how to tie a shoe. And see how I can, oh man, but look at what you did in your brain. Isn't that cool? And believe it or not, it's fun, it's easy to do, and it builds comprehension. Here's another one, and everybody can try this. And I learned this after I banged my head again one time and had to go to neuroscience. They do a little exercise, and I found everybody does this differently. I'm going to take a letter of the alphabet, okay? And what I want you to do is just name a word. It can't be a proper noun, and it can't be variations of the same word. That means like be, being, been, can't go there. Okay, I'm going to name a letter of the alphabet, and everybody can do this at the same time. I'll try not to listen. I'm going to pick a letter, and for about 10 seconds or so, think as many words as you can. That letter is D. Ready? Begin.
And
Dog,
Ding.
dune,
Dinosaur,
dine,
dig,
Down.
dilapidation.
down,
dive,
All right, stop. Now, what's really, I'd like to do this with ELLs, but I have no experience there. It'd be very interesting to hear. But in the world of behavior disorders and learning disabilities, just that little exercise, when I hear people do it, my gosh, I see things and it opens up. Like truly dyslexic children, sometimes I can see the neurologic glitch then. Very, very interesting for me as a teacher. If I see that glitch, I immediately start thinking, how can I get rid of that glitch? You know, my own, this is interesting. Give me a letter and I can show you where I messed up and see if you can diagnose what's happening here. Go on, throw me a letter. Not X either.
And, let's go with J.
J, jump, jingo, jambalaya, juxtaposition, jiffy, jumping, Janelle, Juniper. Okay, that's enough there. You picked a hard one, but notice in that diagnosis, and that's concussion related. What are you doing? He asked. I asked Jay, and most people go jump, Jesus. Oh, can't do Jesus proper noun. And you go to juxtaposition. That's not a cool thing. but it shows you just little skills we can do as teachers. This is out of the box stuff. And in Great Leaps, it's out of the box that teaches us, because every one of us got a bookshelf full of the box. It's out of the box thinking where we're going to innovate, design, and create. So we can have children saying, okay, 30 seconds, name me fun places to go. Ready? Go.
Mhm.
I didn't, and the zoo, the park.
Yeah. Carolyn, did you have a question? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm watching the mute unmute here, so sorry about that. Keep going.
But those are the ideas of out of the box things. These 30-second activities, we wouldn't have gone with them if the kids didn't like them. That's another thing we're having to do and watch now. If the kids don't like it, forget it, because we're too punishing already as a world. A huge thing at Great Leaps is man, this talking time right after the story, that's the cherry on top. That's the cherry on top. If you like cherries, that's the dessert. If you just had to eat that damn broccoli, this part of the day has to be a fun day. And this is a pretty astute Great Leaps group, so I'm throwing in some other things because the time runs by quickly. But we can also begin putting in activities after phonics and activities after phrases too, to start working on phonological awareness very quickly, down and dirty, get it done, our power is we have every day. We don't need an hour a day. And I don't want to go over that 15 minutes because that's your attention span.
Lisa, do you have something to add?
Yeah, about that 30-second timing. I've been using it with my kids because we're field testing and my kids are guinea pigs always. And has a really cool happen. A little girl, Leah, who is severe dyslexic. She's the real deal. I started with her with name all the colors that you can. We were doing dreams, which has do you dream in black or white? So I had her do colors, and she went in the course of a week from being able to do only maybe 5 or 6 before she started repeating and just got too excited about it to spending some time with her mom. I suggested, hey, you said blue, but there's like a trillion different kinds of blue. This kid and her mom looked up kinds of blue. This kid can name 8 kinds of blue now and gave me 19 colors today and was able to organize her thoughts well enough to go through all the blues first. Okay, now I'm out of blues for now. Let me go through the other colors. Then let me go back to the shades and the gold and silver and stuff. So these skills that we don't necessarily think of turn out to be pretty important skills to have. So in that 30 seconds of naming me all the colors, Leah learned how to organize her thoughts better. And that's a big deal.
And when you do this every day, I used to do it after reading stories. I just say, tell me about it. And that's the early days where I just click. How many can you do in a minute? And I'm a data taker. I'll take it down and maybe we can make our program take data on that too. But what I would start, in the start of the year, I'd get 5s and 6s from these kids. And many of them were dyslexic and had neurologic disorders and had real trouble from brain to mouth. There's impediments there. Well, I don't need to study and do neuro activities to bust those damn walls down. I'm a teacher, I'm frontline. I want to bust the damn walls down. So how do I do it? I know daily, any neurologic interventions, if they're daily, they're more powerful. So take the data. And those 5s and 6s turn to 15s and 20s. Then I got another behavior that I really like as a teacher. Outside classroom, regular ed teachers were pointing out that my students were now quick drawing their hands up to answer questions now. They're used to speed. They're used to, a lot of people hate speed. I love it. But when kids are used to answering and there's no punishers, when they're used to answering and they're always winning, teacher asks a question, they're on autopilot now. Up goes the hand, they answer it, and we win.
Yes.
This is for those of you with classrooms too. My Jeopardy team, the Learning Disabilities Jeopardy team, was the middle school champion all the time because I was precision teacher and I taught fast. And
It
that's
looks
all
like
Jeopardy is,
it
fast.
looks like Sammy had something for us.
This was earlier. You were mentioning about other little components they're thinking about adding in between the different skills, the phonics and everything.
Yes.
The part that I would say that it would help would be, I find that the students that I've been doing it with having the hardest problems with the phonics section. The phrases they seem to get through very quickly, the stories they love, and that increases. If there is something in that phonics section, I think that would definitely help.
We constantly work on that, and that's the broccoli, Sammy, that's the broccoli of this all. That's why we do it first to get it over with. I mean, I know some people live, dream, and love phonics. I hate it. It's detail oriented, and I'm a global person. but it's a tool that you need. If I can make, we have played with phonics forever. The first thing I had to do, which I don't like, I had to get rid of nonsense words, nonsense syllables, because too many of the paraprofessionals and tutors had been taught with whole language. And if I gave them J-U-B, they had no clue what it would be. So the consonant, vowel, consonant, it should be jub. But if I do J-U-G, jug, I teach the same skill with the same thing, and it's a word, and they know the word, so they can immediately correct and do it. So I've had to write a phonics intervention for people who don't know phonics. That's a problem of great leaps, but my job isn't to be a purist. My job is to reach as many kids as we can, as easy as we can, to get the best growth we can, because we're in crisis. But so I can slow it down. Maybe we need to slow these, rewrite things, make more probes, and have them where if you knock the first one off, you don't get any reviews and the computer will jump you up. That may be an activity, that may be, give me some feedback on this, you know, through the next weeks and all, or email me. Is this a good route to go? Because phonics is essential. Phonics is important. And if we're not, and I know they don't like it as much. I know many move, but we're having kids finish phonics before they finish a story. So I'm looking to add, through a Norton Gillingham writer from Maine, a multisyllabic, I can't write multisyllabic phonics probes because it isn't my background and I don't like to do things I'm not really, really good at. But we may look at adding 5 to 7 pages of multisyllabic, phonetically perfect, an intervention there. Does it sound worthwhile, Carolyn, or Sammy? Jamie?
Ken, one thing, one value that I used to, I'm sorry you had to ditch the nonsense
Yeah.
words, because one of the values in a nonsense word is it usually is a syllable in a multisyllable.
You got it. A word like juxtaposition. You can't do it without jux, and jux isn't a word. But the second I do it, I'd almost guess now 40% of the Great Leaps tutors out there were taught to read with whole language. And if I put jux, the tutor can't do it. Now here's another option, and in digital world we can do it if it's worth the time, is it to have probes with nonsense probes that the tutor can call up, or would it be easier just for the tutor to write them themselves?
I was thinking, how about maybe a video or something to help the tutor, to teach the tutors how to use those nonsense words?
Here's the problem there is brain plasticity. It's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. Meaning what I can teach a first grader, let's say states and capitals, I could do it in 4 months. 8th grader would take 2 years. Same thing goes with teaching all the rules of phonics.
What if you introduce nonsense words as a challenge exercise? Then it wouldn't, would it count towards the score, or would it just be a challenge?
How does my tutor immediately correct and grade it and call the errors? See, that's my problem. The tutors don't know it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if the tutors do know it, that's going to be the power of computers eventually, and the artificial intelligence. is if we can pick up that the tutor knows phonics, my only problem is those of us writing the probes, we need an army, and I don't have an army.
Lisa, do you have something to add?
Yeah, from what I have seen, many of these words in the phonics section are actually nonsense words for these kids anyway.
That is true, but not for the adults.
No, exactly. That's the right idea. So when I have kids seeing RIME or TONGS, tongs, they don't know what, or shuck. Yeah, that's a beautiful one. That is not a nonsense word, but I have not had a kid yet who's understood, even when I've had them in other states, what the word shuck means.
It's Nebraska, guys.
And in Iowa, yeah.
Oysters, man, that's Florida oyster word. I'm sorry, that's the Florida word.
Oh, is it?
But
You don't shuck corn? I thought you shuck corn.
So
if I've done my job,
nonsense words.
if I've done my job, I can teach all of those letters and that idea of CVC, gum. I can make sure I catch all of those letters so that when you hit a word like juxtaposition, you know the and you know the x, jux, and you'd get it, even though I hadn't taught it. And this, boy, I really differ from the Orton Gillingham people here. If I really got you down in CVC, I don't have to give you every example on the whole planet Earth that's possible with those. And I measure it by words I have. It transfers, man. You don't have to go forever. And they prove it through their data.
Whiteboard.
And
And for those who want nonsense words, what Ken was saying about using the time that's built in, I will occasionally throw a nonsense word on a board. I have a board. It's a $1 investment at Walmart. So I find that between that and the nonsense words that are in there for these kids that they don't understand, that they don't know anyway. I don't think we're getting a whole lot of prediction out of the phonics section.
Leah, before our time runs out on comprehension, I wanted to get to you in a minute because you're working with, I know the kids you're working with, and they're like, I used to work with middle school and elementary in Bronson, but with the same kind of kids. What are you seeing in their comprehension there at the elementary school you're working at?
Well, I don't work in the elementary school.
Okay, were you getting the kids from Williams?
I'm getting, so yeah, but I thought you were saying like I was in the school. The kids from Williams.
Those Williams kids of Gainesville, what are you seeing in terms of their word and world knowledge? Are they
None. Yeah, they just completely missing. And one of the criticisms was that what they're doing is the kids that are struggling reading, they're pulling them out of like specials and different things like, you know, other classes to work on reading because they're doing so poorly, and then they're missing all those, you know.
We've got to really work on that. First of all, they take a kid out of PE. That's the dumbest thing you could possibly do. I need to do a whole talk on this because I've got a book from 1920 something that tells you how to remediate. That's like the #1 rule. You don't remediate during a preferred activity. You just don't do that. But why do we always pick science and social studies? Well, the kids hate it because they're always having to have these tests. Our kids who can't read are not allowed to see science experiments. They're not allowed to see maps and see cool movies and hear good stories like my dad is a history teacher. They're taken away from that and they think I'm supposed to do it all. Not fair. And that's another, I like the idea of doing it in the back of the room or in the hall. And the faster we can do it, the better. Because I want those kids, that's a cornerstone of special ed from where I was from. I want them back, but I want let's fix them so they can make it in that real world. We've left out that let's fix them. We just threw them into the real world and they all drown. But we can get word and world knowledge, but not through stupid ideas like they need more. Oh, we're failing reading tests. so we need to give them 2 hours of reading. That's incorrect. We only need 15 minutes of reading. We just need to teach it and stop messing around.
Yeah. Carolyn,
And-
did you have something real quick? No. And Sammy, it looks like did you have something?
No, but what I could say is that is 100% right, because we use almost remedial reading as almost like a punishment. Well, we'll take you out of gym, we'll take you out of this, and we'll do that instead. And the kids actually get turned off by it. So that's 100% correct what you were saying.
But Sammy, what do they got to do to get back in PE?
They have to pass reading. No, I'm kidding.
Boy,
Now, we're not allowed to take them out of gym is the one thing we can't take them out of, but
oh, good.
but it is true though. A lot of activities. Oh, we'll help you during this. Come only for 5 minutes of this. Meanwhile, they're losing out on something that they wanted to do. So you have to watch out. Has to be something.
You guys as experts, watch out on this stuff. I got in Chicago, a mother came to me. She paid all the money for a conference, which is far too much, just so she was able to talk to me about her little girl. And her little girl was still in, I won't name the, it's a competitive fluency program, but she was out of one of her favorite class and her friends, so she could keep taking, I'll say it, read naturally, so she could keep staying in the class that was doing that. Well, she had already passed Great Leaps, but she was failing her remediation class. Well, I looked at her data. First of all, I'm not going to believe it when a mom tells me that. That's what data is for. I look at the data and it was real. And so I wrote a letter, and they, basically the letter was trying to say that she's taking up good room. She knows how to read. Put another kid in there. So they took her out, but the system did not know that child's reading. The system punished that child by taking her away from her friends, and she was failing because she did not like it. So we didn't have our finger on the pulse of who that kid is. And I swear you can tell if a kid can read at their grade level in 15 seconds. I don't need 7 hours of tests.
Yeah.
I need 15 seconds to listen.
We're kind of running up on our time here, so I want to see if there are any last burning questions that anybody had on comprehension or anything that we've covered. And okay, well, it doesn't seem like I'm seeing anybody, but I don't know. I guess did you have? Oh wait, Anthony, do you have one, or no? I think that's Lisa in agreement to Anthony. Sorry, lots of stuff bouncing here. But I guess that if you had any closing thoughts, and then maybe one last reiteration of our challenge for the week, real quick.
The last closing thought for all of us to understand very critically is the importance of world knowledge to reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is not just about figuring out what a word is. You've got to know what the word is. Knowing what a word is not knowing the world around you. Our kids need the science and social studies from preschool on, because it's a part of real world, real life world knowledge. And I'd ask Leah and got what I knew I was going to hear. Our children of poverty have often incredibly limited worlds. I knew Florida kids 45 minutes from the beach that had never been at the beach. Wow. They'd never been outside the small town of Reddick. I know there's kids that have never left the Bronx. There's kids in New York City, I read this really neat one time, who believed if you dig deep enough, you'll hit cement. We as teachers, let's get the reading stuff done accurately, quickly, and with success, so we can get to the job of teaching. Mm-hmm. That's what it's about. And that's why we within the attention span of a child, 15 minutes is all I need to teach a kid how to read. Now, let's teach him how to read,
Yeah.
And
Rosie,
and
did you
have
it? We had one thing from Rosie here, it looks like.
Yeah, Rosie.
Oh, it looks like you're muted.
Yes.
Here we go.
It's unmuted. It's funny that you said that, because I am teaching the Bronx, and I was taking a student to the Bronx Zoo, and we pulled up outside the Bronx Zoo. He looked at the animals that were done in metal, and he thought that was the zoo. He thought that was the animals.
Wow.
He literally said, look at the animals.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in also.
Oh, jump in.
We're together.
I also teach in the same school in the Bronx, and to quote Tupac, a rose can grow from the cement. So we are literally seeing that happening with the kids in our school through Great Leaps. So thank you.
That's awesome.
I start with, this is important in comprehension, but this is large class stuff, but it's all about teaching. I start with the relevant. With my group, it was Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. I start our Langston Hughes. Thank you, ma'am. So I start with the relevant in their world, and then I can work you to Russia, to all kinds of places. I can start talking to my kids that love to fish and hunt. What kind of bait would you use for the Loch Ness Monster? Who are your kids? Relate to them and take them all over the world. And you can do that in these depth of knowledge places. Forget all the rules sometimes. When you get the magic moment in teaching, ride with it. We'll get them. If it happens to come during phrases, forget the story that day. There's 5 days a week for this stuff. Ride that baby. That's rapport. That's the magic of you're going to take that kid further than they've ever been before. We give them the tool skills, reading. Then you're I put the car together. You're the driver. You take them to neat places. And a lot of that stuff isn't written down. I hope we're writing down ideas on how for you to reach that kid better. So, because we can't put everything down on that depth of knowledge or that multi-sensory comprehension development. You can't put every question down. I teach you how to ask those questions and build and build and build.